about an hour or so. I had a little lunch. I walked around outside. I'm back. I'm going to start from where I left off from before, but kind of start over a little bit too. I was looking, the first thing where I ended off last time when I was streaming is I was attempting to look at how you can use the parent and child functions with p5 variables, not just IDs specifying elements that are in a DOM element. So what I'm talking about here is always appending or putting a DOM element in as a child of another DOM element. The question is, where are you accessing that DOM element from? Are you referring to the ID of it, or do you already have a reference to it in a variable? And in the examples I showed before, I had a reference to it with a variable, with an ID, and now I'm going to do it with a variable. By the way, I'm just going to repeat that sentence again as soon as I record the actual video that I will make as a standalone video that I will upload. So I repeat this every single time. I apologize if you've watched these live streams before, but this is the raw live stream. It will get archived. It will all be there, and periodically I will hit I will hit a record button and pretend I'm making a video lesson, and then I'll hit a stop button, and that little section will be saved as its own standalone chunk. There is a chat where you can ask questions. You can also tell me when the microphone cuts out or if the audio or the picture isn't clear. So let me know right now if you can hear me okay, if everything looks okay over here as well. I'm a little bit out of focus when I come forward, which is good because it reduces the amount of imperfections in my face. Many imperfections. I have a lot of imperfections. Many, many imperfections. And here I have this like green glow around me, which is a little bit strange. So I don't know if there's actually anybody watching. Say hi if you're watching. But I'm looking at my dashboard, but I'm just going to get started. So I'm reminding myself this is the example that I'm going to work with. Let me minimize this list. And when I click here, it makes an image. Okay. Okay, so, and I'm ready. Oh, there are some people watching. All good, you guys are back. That's so nice. It makes me feel warm inside to see people there. Oops, and this I can't open up too much. Okay. So here we go. In this video, I want to look again at the parent-child function. So it's a bit of a review of that function, but I want to look at it in a slightly different context. Before, the main reason that I looked at the parent function was to take a DOM element that I generated in code and insert it into another place in sort of the existing HTML. So, which was fine. And then to do that, you reference the ID of an HTML element. Here, I want to look at how do you use the parent-child function with elements that you've generated in code, which is ultimately the same thing, but it's another chance to look at it. And just also, it's to make the point, by the way, the thing you can pass into that parent or child function is a p5 variable that has a reference to a DOM element. So that explanation may not have made any sense. Let's look at an example that I've started to get some context here. So actually, let's just look. So what's going to be, this is, by the way, the HTML file is empty. So everything in this example, I'm generating through code. So first I make a paragraph that says this is a link. It has a little gray background and a little bit of padding. Then I make a link, an anchor tag with the word apples, and I'm handling if you click on that tag with an event called add photo, and that add photo function generates a image element. Boy, a lot of stuff going on there. So, right, first we have the paragraph element that's made here. Then I have the link element that's made here. And when I click on that link, an image appears, which happens down here. Image, create image. Now this is important. This is different than load image. I'm like looking, where am I looking at? This is different than load image. Load image is something I looked at in previous videos where you load a file and then draw that file into your canvas. Here, the create image function actually makes an image DOM element, just like you might type in HTML, image source equals. And this source equals could be the name of the image file, or it could actually be a full URL to another image. So this is a way of inserting an image as its own DOM element separate from drawing an image of the canvas on the page. That's kind of an interesting topic of how you might do things with that for another time. But here, just showing you yet another create function, another HTML tag, the image tag source being the attribute, what is that image's source. And over here, so we can see the result of all of this. Again, I'm going to look at the output here. Click, click, click. So what I want to see happen is I want this beautiful gray padded box. I want the link to the apples clicking thing to be in that box. And I want those apples to get inserted also in that box. I want everything to be in that box. So here we look at and say P is the object that is the paragraph. A is the object, the DOM element object, which is actually a p5 element object. A is the link, and image is the image. So if I wanted A to go into P, and this, by the way, I get this confused all the time. Which one is it? A.parent P, or is it P.parent A? You could make a case for both of those, right? You could make a case for you want A to be parented by P, or you want P to parent A. Which one was it? I honestly can't remember, because now that I'm even like asking this question, I confused myself. So let's go with my first instinct, which is that I want A to have as its parent P. The action is being applied to A, and the action is make its parent P. I'm pretty sure that's right. And you can see there that worked. So now the apples link is inside the paragraph. So the difference is it appears up there rather than as a separate thing below. And now when I click apples, those images get added below, which actually is maybe a nice effect. But what I could say is also like image.parent P. So now, and I've got a problem again. As soon as I do this, what's wrong? This is not a global variable. So I don't have access to that variable scope down here. So I'm going to make that a global variable. And I'm going to say P equals create P. And I'm going to run this. And now when I click apples, those images are now also inside that paragraph element. So this is just, and incidentally, let's just remind ourselves, I could have said p.childImage, and this, if my mind is working correctly, these are identical. I want image to be parented by the paragraph, or I want the paragraph to child the image, right? So that's the action, that's the way of thinking about it. Honestly, a better way of thinking about it would be to look it up in the p5.js documentation. I will include a link to that below, and I'm sure it will say it there. But this is something that certainly does confuse me. But in general, I stick to the parent function, and there you go. So this is a scenario that you are looking at. Now, I wanted to look at this also because I think we could kind of raise the stakes here a little bit. So this is probably a good place to stop watching this video, but I'm going to go on anyway. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a whole lot of these. Like, what if I make a whole bunch of these? Let's think about this. For var I equals 0, I is less than 5. Let's just do 5 for right now, I++. And I'm going to put a loop around all of this code. And I don't want the global variable anymore. And here, I'm going to comment this. I'm going to comment out what's going on here. So first, I just want to see the result here. So the nice thing that you can see here is this principle still applies. Right now, we're making a paragraph a link. Link gets parented by that paragraph. Another paragraph, a link. Link gets parented by that paragraph. Now, for you, I might say as an exercise, could you make each one of these paragraphs have different content? Could you make one a link called apples and one a link called blueberries? One a link called bananas, depending on where you are in the world. So that might be something that you add to yourself, and maybe I'll work on that another time. But the point of this now is this is a nice opportunity for us to remind ourselves that now this add photo callback, when it's triggered, what if I want to do the same thing? What if I want to get the images inside, right? When I click on this one, the images should appear inside that one. When I click on this one, the images should appear inside that one. This is a pretty tricky problem, but it is doable, and it uses something that you haven't used before, that I'm excited to show you. So let's see how we can make this work. So the question is, what do I put here? So first, let's ask the question, what do I even have access to? Well, I have access to the keyword this. Do you remember that keyword, this? What is this referring to? It's referring to the DOM element that triggered the callback add photo. The specific one, A. So the link, so this would be parenting the image by the link. Now we could do that. And let's run that. And let's see if that at least gives us something. So that actually is working. The weird thing is this is actually part of the link, which is kind of an interesting effect. All of these are part of that same link. I click on any of them, I keep adding. But I wanted them to be separate, just inserted into the paragraph, right? So this works, it's nice. How could I get access to the paragraph? Okay, let's make a diagram. So over here, let's think about what's actually on the page. I have paragraph, which has inside it an anchor, followed by another paragraph, which has inside it an anchor. So what I previously just did is I took that image and inserted it, the image of the apple, and inserted it as part of the anchor. But what I want to do is I want to take that image and insert it as part of the paragraph. Paragraph is a child of body. Anchor is a child of paragraph. And my new image, I want to insert as a child of paragraph. But the only thing I have is a reference is to this. Well, what if I could reference this anchor tag and ask, hey, who's your parent? Ooh, where's your, it's like when you're at the playground and there's a child who's doing something and you say, where's your, you don't want to know about this, but I spend a lot of time with my own children in the playground, and this sort of like relates to it in a second, but then it's like a weird thing that I'm talking about. So back to this. I want to know who's your parent, A, and so there's a way that P5 will give you that, right? If I say parent with a argument, I'm saying assign this element's parent to this other element. If I say parent with no argument, parent blank, I'm asking P5 to tell me who the current parent is. So look at this. Come back over here. I can say var paragraph equals this dot parent. This is me asking this. You're the anchor tag, this anchor tag. Who is your parent? Oh, your parent is this paragraph? Great. Make the image part of that paragraph. And I'm now going to run this. And you can see, ta-da. I mean, it looks the same, but this is no longer a link. So it's now been parented by the paragraph. And by the way, so this is sort of the end of this, except I actually have a couple things I wanted to add. There's another thing I wanted to add to this, which I think would be interesting. Oh, this is great. I'm going to add something to this, which I think would be interesting. Let's just do that now. I have something else that I want to show you towards the end of this video. We're already 10 minutes in, but there's a few, this is going sort of well, so I'm not ready to stop just yet. So let's add, what I want to add to this is something like, okay, so what I want to add, and let's put this in the HTML file, which has some extra style stuff that I'm not using. Take that out. Let me add a button. Button ID equals clear, and I'm going to say clear images. So I want to add to the body of the page, and I'll put it inside a paragraph, just so it has some padding around it. I want to add onto the page a button at the top, and that button is clear images. And when I press that button, I want to remove all the images that have been added. How do I do this? Now, in theory, there's a bunch of, let's think about this for a second. Oh, so there's actually a quick way that I could do this without even the way that I was thinking I was going to do this. So there's two different ways we could think about this. Number one is, let's come back to this diagram. Now that this is working, let's think about what we have. A paragraph with an anchor inside it and an image and maybe another image, right? Another paragraph with an anchor inside it and an image, right? We have a bunch of paragraph elements with things inside of it. And I want to just, how can I find all of the images on the page? That's right, give me all the images on the page. Well, here's a way I could find all the images on the page. You know about this because I did this in a previous video. Select all IMG. Select all IMG would suddenly give you an array of all the image elements anywhere on the page, no matter where they are in that page. So this is useful. If I could get all those images elements, maybe I could do something to remove them all from the page. So while I could do it this way, and I'll say you do it this way, after you watch this video, if you're following along, do it with select all as an exercise. I'm going to do it a slightly different way, because sometimes you might not be able to easily use select all in what you're doing. What if instead you just kept your own array of DOM elements? And this is not an uncommon practice. Actually, I don't know what a common or uncommon practice is because I don't do any of this for real. I'm just figuring it out and making videos about it. So it's not an uncommon practice in my making video examples about it. Anyway, so if I come back to the code, I might say var images equals array. So I'm creating a global variable that's an array where anytime I make one of these elements, I'll store a version of it. So I have this for myself. And in that case, anytime I make an image element, I can say images.push image. So this is me adding that image object to this array, which is a global variable. So now anywhere in this code, I have access to all of those image objects. This can be very useful because, for example, I could do something. I could remove them one at a time, which would be kind of an interesting thing to do. We could do that, or I could remove them all at once. I could apply a style to all of them. Let's look at just removing them all at once. So, albeit this is an array that I could fill with select all, I'm making it myself. So let's take a look at how I might do this. So first of all, what's on the page? There's this button. How do I get access to that button? That button is made in the HTML file with an ID called clear, so I just need to use select. So I need to say var button equals select button. Oh no, I called it clear. And then I want to handle when it's pressed with, I don't know, clear stuff. I'll write a function called clear stuff. And here is where I can do a loop. I already have that array that has all the image objects in it for index I from 0 to the length of the array. So for every single element in that array, what was it called? Images.length I++. Now this images index I dot something. So right here, now I know it's showing me syntax errors, but this is now me saying whenever I made an image element, I put it into that array. Hooray for me. So now I have this it's like a backup. It's like redundancy. Like I'm making all these elements, and in case I ever need to refer back to them, I've got them all in this array. Sure, I could get them with select all, but I'm really cautious and worried about it. I'm going to make my own array. So now I could apply a style to them. I could change their source to show a different image. But just to demonstrate removing stuff, there's a p5 DOM library function called remove. And what remove does is actually removes it from the page, which, by the way, is different than hide. So I could use hide, which is going to hide it, make it so you don't see it, but the element is still actually there as part of the sort of like active page, so I could show it again. If I remove it, it's gone, it's deleted, it's not coming back. So let's not worry about hide so much right now. Let's add remove. So all that I've done is now anytime I add one of these images, all of those images, wherever they've been added, all of those images are now part of this array. So now all I need to do when I hit clear is it will loop through the whole array and remove them all. And there you go. And now I can add some more again. And I can hit clear and it works again. Now one thing I probably should do is once I've actually removed them, I could probably reset the array back to blank. It worked anyway, but I might want to just sort of like clear that array because I don't need references to those objects which have now since been removed. So this is hopefully showing you a bit more of stuff that you can do. I'm showing you, again, just to sort of recap a little bit, I can make stuff in the HTML file and access it through select by an ID, like I did with that button. I can make elements dynamically in a loop, like I did with create p, and then I can also make other elements, parent them to those elements, and have things inside. Then later, I could make elements that are based on an event, and I could know which DOM element triggered that event, and then I could know what's the parent of that DOM element that triggered the event, and put other things in that DOM element. So there's a lot of pieces to this example, but hopefully this is showing you kind of a bit of the spectrum now of how you might write HTML, write JavaScript to generate, control, style, select all, that sort of thing. I think I have 2 more videos that I want to make. One is about how you might drag and drop a file into the browser and use the contents of that file. And then I keep looking over here because I'm looking at the time. And then another video just to show you about sort of controlling interface elements kind of in a zombified way, so they just like act on their own, which I think is kind of interesting. So that's the end of this particular rather long 17-minute video, and I'll be back with another one. Okay, I'm going to check the chat, and thanks for listening, folks. Hopefully that made sense, and that was like kind of a useful example. By the way, I'm saving all these examples. The camera just went off. Good timing. I'm saving all these examples, and they all are in a GitHub repository called Video Lesson Materials. I'm wondering if I just Google Video Lesson Materials Shiftman GitHub. So when I make an example, in theory, I know I'm standing in front of this, so let me just come over here. Under here in this GitHub repository under code, usually the examples are found here. I need a better way of integrating this all together, possibly in like a website or something like that. But at least you can look and find stuff here. I'm not very good at updating this. So you send me an email to remind me, or I don't know, some other way of contacting me that uses the internet. But also, if you're typing along and you want to submit a pull request to this repository, that's super helpful to me. And thank you to Kenny Liao from China, who has like submitted so many of these. And also Osama from ITP, who submitted a few too. Thank you guys for helping me out here. Okay, so I need to look back at my list. Where's my video library list? So I got this. So things that I haven't done are passing an argument into a callback event, which requires a closure. I would like to get to that. I don't know if I'm going to do that today. It's a little beyond the scope of, this is like a crazy long list of DOM videos that I've somehow made. I want to do drag and drop, which I think is just like a kind of fun, useful thing. And then look at controlling interface elements. Maybe I don't know. It's 2:15. I've got another 45 minutes here, I think, before I need to move on. So let me do the drag and drop. So I need to get set up for that. Let me get set up for that. So here, I'm going to hit the play ad button while I get set up. There's only 6. I'm not going to torture you with the play ad button. I just find it so funny that it's there. Okay, so let me save as drag and drop. And let me delete all this. And let me create canvas 200, 200, background 0. And then in the index.html file, I'm going to add ID equals a drop zone. And then I will style it. Drop zone with some padding. Oh, this needs to be in style. I'm going to add some. I should probably do this in the video, but in the interest of time, I'm going to prepare this in advance. Border style dashed. I don't know. Border weight or something. Let's see if this works. And then I'm going to say drag your file here. So let's do this. Oh, that worked. Good enough. So you can see the idea here is that what I want to create is an example where you drag a file from your hard drive into that area, and it's an image file. It displays in the canvas. And then after I do that, I'll switch it so you can like drag the file just right onto the canvas, which is kind of the same thing. So now what I need in order to do that is a bunch of images. So I'm going to go to my go-to ridiculous thing that I've been doing. It's my little running gag about rainbows, unicorns. Let's see. View image. Let me save. No, seriously. Save image as a rainbow. Buzz marketing this website here, which I don't mean to be doing. And then let's get this one too. View image. Save as a rainbow2.jpg. And now I need a unicorn. This is a good, I don't know, this is a good one. View image, save image as a unicorn. And microbiology. This is a recent interest of mine. Images. Here we go, some bacteria. Save image as bacteria. Okay, there we go. I've got a bunch of images. And so the idea here now is that I'm going to drag these images here. And when I drag them here, they will appear into the canvas. Okay, so anybody have any questions, comments, worries, concerns? Add them into the chat. I'll see them in about 15 seconds. I'm going to pause and drink some water over here. Hopefully everything's still working. I'm going to cycle the cameras. And come back here. Okay, I'm erasing. Oh, I'm over here, by the way. Oh, this camera's off. Oh, I'm tripping over things. If you guys are watching this, you're very kind. Okay. Where is Thumpkin, by the way? That's the song that has always been in my head constantly while making these videos, and I keep saying I'm going to sing it during a break, but I can't remember what it's called, and I think I'm singing Frere Jacques because it's like the same tune. Okay, I think I'm ready for this. Anybody have any comments? Nope. There's a few of you, 3 or 4 of you watching. I'm going to record this. Okay, so let's delete this apples.jpg. It's unnecessary. And hit save. That's good. Okay, here we go. And which one of these pens is good? This one looks like it'll be okay. And here we go. Oh, I'm going to start over here. In this video, I'm going to look at a feature of JavaScript in the browser, but something that's also built into the p5.js framework in a nice way that allows you to drag a file, a text file, an image file, a JSON file, any sort of file. What's JSON? Maybe you don't know what that is. It's a thing that I'll talk about in another video that I'm singing, Sprechstimme, which is speak singing is sort of, I don't know what I'm talking about. Let me start this video. I don't want that in the video. I'll do my Sprechstimme jokes in another time. Hello. I don't need to say hello. In this video, I want to look at a feature of web browsers and something you can do in JavaScript in general, but also this thing is built into the p5.js library in a rather nice way that I enjoy. And this feature is dragging a file into the browser and making use of that file. And that file could be an image, it could be a text file, it could be some sort of data file. Data is a thing that I'm going to get into in some future videos. There's different kinds of data formats. So there's lots of potential to what you could do if you ask the user to say, hey, give me an image, and I'll do something that's really exciting and interesting in the browser with that image, or give me 100 images and even that. So let's look at how that works. So first of all, what I mean by that, and I guess I probably don't need this diagram, but I'm going to draw it anyway, is on the web page, I'm going to make an area on the page, right? So I'm going to have a canvas, and I want an area on the page where if I have some sort of file, if I drag that file and release it there, and if this is an image, I want to see that image then suddenly appear and be drawn into the canvas. So how do you do that? Let's go and look. So I've sort of set this up in advance. I have this particular example, and you can see it's got exactly what I'm talking about. This canvas is made with the create canvas function, and you can see background is called, so you can see that it has a black background. Then there, above the canvas is this like dashed area on the screen that says drag your file here. Now, where did that come from? That is written into the HTML file. So I'm going to go over here and look at the canceled. Look at the HTML file, and you can see there it is. There's just a paragraph element. Drag your file here. I gave it an ID called drop zone because I'm going to need to refer to it. Hey, that's the paragraph element that I want to be able to drop something onto. And then also I've just written some styles referring to that drop zone. And maybe just so it's a little bit more visible, I might say font size is 36 point, and maybe I'll do something like width is 50%. So by the way, this is also something that you might not have seen before. There's all of these units that are happening in CSS. px for pixels, so I actually like the number of pixels, want that padding. Point for something that has to do with typography that I'm sure somebody understands much better than I do. But you know, the larger the point, the larger the font size, but also percentage being relative. So this DOM element is always just going to be 50% the size of the page, which you'll see now if I hit run again, you can see as I resize the page, that DOM element doesn't have a fixed size. It's always just 50% of the page. That's a nice little tidbit that I'm adding into this video. So how do I make it so that I can drag a file there? Incidentally, what happens if I drag a file right now? I drag this file over here and I drop it and I'm gone from the page. Look, and you can see that what is it? That file is just literally opened up in the page. It's a file of bacteria. I don't know, I was trying to do something other than rainbows and unicorns, but maybe bacteria, I went in the wrong direction. But it's interesting. Okay, so I need to get this working. So first of all, I need to add some JavaScript events to this element. I want to handle the event. So the browser handled that event for me, right? When you drag the file into the browser, it assumes like, oh, I'm a browser, you're dragging me a file, I'll open it. I want to say to the browser, no, I'm in charge here. Don't do what you're going to do. I got something else for you. I got something else planned. So if I come over here, and first I need to do is I'm going to make a variable, and I'm going to call select. So select, and let's make this a global variable, because I might want to access it in other places. I'm going to say select the drop zone. Now, something that I'm doing here, which you might find a little bit confusing, but I find this to be just so convenient. I like to just name my variable with the same name as the ID. It's absolutely not required. The ID can be totally, and nobody knows whether or cares whether they're the same. Just you, the programmer. For me, it's a little bit convenient, but I don't want you to be confused that there's some like matching happening there. That's just, I happen to name the variable the same name as the ID. Okay, so what's next? You know that you can attach an event to an area by referencing that event as a function called on that object. So the mouse pressed event, the changed event, the input event, the mouse over, the mouse out. These are all events that I've looked at in previous videos. I've got a new event for you. I don't remember what it's called, but I do know there's one that's drag over. So the drag over event, let's handle that with a function called highlight. Okay? So I'm going to say function highlight drop zone dot style background color, and let's give it a little gray. And zoom back out here. So now this should, at least I've handled one event, drag over. Okay, so now if I take this file and drag it over here, you can see it becomes gray. Now it's never not becoming gray, but at least I've got that event. So this, by the way, has nothing to do, so far this has nothing to do with the file. I'm just handling an event if you drag over it. If I move the mouse over it, it doesn't do anything. If I drag the mouse over it without a file, it doesn't do anything. This is an event only for when I drag a file over it. You can see it becomes gray. So that's one thing I can do. Now, what if I'm like dragging a file, then I'm like, no, bad idea, take the file out. Maybe I want to unhighlight it, right? So I could then say, I can't remember what it's called, but I think it's drag out, unhighlight, and I'll just reset the background color. Oops, I'm going to write another function, and I'm going to reset the background color to white. Now, you might be asking yourself a question, and I need to get to this in another video. But you might be asking questions like, what do I need these two functions for? I could really have just one function that accepts an argument, white or gray. And then I could say drag over, call that function with gray, drag out, call that function with white. This is actually quite possible in JavaScript. I'm doing it this way for convenience because, again, the other way requires a sort of some trickiness for how do I get an argument kind of into those functions. I would love to get to that. Remind me. I will remember. I'm going to think of a good scenario and try to make a nice video that, because this is sort of like a fundamental aspect of JavaScript. It uses this thing called a closure. Okay, so, but we're not doing that right now. I'm not doing that right now. I'm going to leave this as two separate functions. But you're right to ask that question, because you being the metaphorical person who I think I'm talking to. I mean, you're, yeah, okay. So, undefined is not a function. Line 8. Probably drag out is wrong. So how do we figure this out? I should stop being so like, I'm just going to imagine what the p5.dom API has in it, and I should probably go and look this stuff up. So if you were doing this and you got this error and you wanted to figure out how to find it, you could open up a browser, you could go to p5.js.org. I'm going to click on, you should be able to find this under reference, and I'm sure that will change at some point soon, but an easier way to find it, I'm going to go under libraries, and I'm going to go to p5.dom, and now I'm going to see, oh, look at all of these. Look at all of these methods, and look at that. I called it drag out, but we can see here the event is actually called drag leave. That's the name of the function, drag leave. And by the way, there's add class and remove class. Interestingly, class, I'm thinking of something that happened in a previous video, and I wonder if that should actually be changed. But anyway, that's a side topic. I'll have to think about that in my own time. So drag leave is the name of the function that I wanted. So I'm going to minimize that and come back. And I could have clicked on it to see some more information, but I don't need to do that right now. I feel confident that I could just type drag leave here. And now I can run this again, and here we go. File, leave, file, leave. Look at that. What a nice little, I'm so good at user interface interaction design. I'm being sarcastic because I'm not good at that. But you can see this is a bit more intuitive, at least, to be able to handle these types of events of when you have the thing over and when you have the thing out. So, but we're missing kind of the exciting thing. This is just like, nothing's going to happen. Like if I, look, that's the same thing happened. That event, the drop event, when I let go of the mouse, when I perform this release action, this is me miming the release action, I need to handle that event. And that event is handled with the drop function. Now, what goes in here? Let's think about this for a second. So let me comment this out and run this. There are two things that have to happen, and this is tricky. One thing that has to happen is I need to read that file. The other thing that needs to happen is I might want, okay, well actually, there really aren't two things. I was thinking intuitively there aren't two things. There's one moment, right? I drop. So the moment I drop, I might want to handle that event by like applying some style to it, like unhighlighting it. And then I also want to read the file that's been dropped. But those are actually divided into two separate callbacks. And there's a really good reason for that. And the good reason for that is that I might want to take all of these images. What if I drag all of these images into the browser? I need a callback to handle each file one at a time, but there's only one moment of dropping. So, so in that sense, and I forget which is which, let's go back to the reference. So, oops, let me go back to the reference here. And I'm going to click on this drop event. And you can see we could read this callback, callback. So look at this. The first callback is triggered when files are dropped. So that's the event, the actual event of dropping the files. Then the second callback is to when the file is loaded. And actually, these also happen at separate times. Because what if you drag and drop a like 500 megabyte image file, right? That drop moment happens instantly, but it might take the browser quite a while to read that very large file. So that's why those are two separate events. So I can go back to my code and I can say, you know what? When I drop it, I also want to unhighlight the box, right? That's, I want to unhighlight it, and then I want to handle the file. So I'm doing two things. As soon as I drop it, unhighlight the box, and also trigger a new function, got file. Function got file. Now, interestingly enough, so let's just run this and at least see now when I drag the unicorn over here. Let's just only the unicorn, please. It highlights, it unhighlights. It highlights, it unhighlights. Let's drop it. It unhighlights, and I've overridden the default browser behavior. The default browser behavior would have been to open that file, but I've now overridden that by whatever goes here. So now I can do whatever I want, and not only can I do whatever I want, I can do whatever I want with the data in that file. For example, I could say create image file. Now, I don't think this is actually going to work. I know it's not going to work because that's so, but let's try it with this rainbow. Right? Something appeared there, but it's like a broken image. So this thing here, the argument that comes into the function, this might be actually something rather new to you, I'm realizing, because most of our callbacks like highlight or unhighlight, don't have data that arrives with it. So this is a new scenario. This callback, p5, is not only triggering the callback when the file is ready to be loaded, but it's also handing a variable. And inside that variable is just, p5 is like such a nice, wonderful friend that p5 is like, look, I'm going to hand you, I'm going to call this function, I'm going to hand you this variable, and I'm going to fill that variable for you with all of the data associated with that file. So this file variable is actually an instance of a p5 file object. And there's all this information. Like, I know how big the file is, what its name is. There's lots of metadata associated with that file. And something that's in that file is a property called data. And that data might just be the text that's in the file. It might be some other data format that's in the file, or it might be image data. So if I say create image file.data, now watch this. Oh, okay, let's look at the reference. You sure I saved that? I ran that? I'm pretty sure that was right, but we have a little bit of a problem here. It's not working. So let me go back to the reference, and I'm going to go to the reference, and I want to look for file. File. This is where this. Where's the p5 file object? Somebody find it for me quickly. p5 image, p5.file. I'm not seeing it. So it's some reason it's not in the reference, which it probably should be. I'm taking drastic measures here, and I'm going to go to the p5.js GitHub repository. I should actually just look for you know what? I should look for an example that does this. There's actually an example that I was going to go into the GitHub repository. I'm just going to fast forward through the video like 30 seconds or a minute. You can skip this part, but I'm going to go look for under learning, maybe, or under DOM. Let's look at under p5 element. I'm going to look for the drop. This is probably not the right place. Yeah. No, I want under examples, DOM, random, DOM, drop. There we go. File.data. Well, by golly, I was right, wasn't I? Create image file.data. So that's what I meant to do. Why didn't that work? Let's be a little bit more methodical about this. Maybe something else is going wrong that I don't know about. So, for example, let's see if there's some of the metadata there. I'm going to say create p file.name, create p file.type, create p file.size. And so a file has all this metadata associated with it. Its name, its type, its size. So they're all strings. That's just data. And data should actually be the image stuff. So let's run this. And let me drag in this rainbow file. And you can see undefined, drop, undefined. Oh, you know what? I wonder if guess what I think I might have done. I know what I did. I probably reversed the order of those. Callbacks. So this is a very common thing that happens. Aren't you enjoying the fact that I just mess this stuff up all the time? I really hope you are. So this is something. So we've looked at this and realized like the callback is triggering. I mean, of course it's triggering because there are two callbacks. Both of them are triggering, but I'm triggering them probably in the wrong order. So let's go back to the p5 reference, libraries, DOM, and let's look at this drop function right here, and let's read this again. The first callback triggers when the files are dropped. The second callback triggers to receive the loaded file. Isn't that the way I did it? First callback, but I have a feeling the reference, so it wasn't entirely my mistake. I have a feeling the reference misled me. Let's switch the order of these. It's probably the first argument is the callback to handle the file, and the second argument is the callback to handle the event, just the dropping event. So let's try this again. And here we go. Yay! So I've got and let's do something where I say var image equals create image. I say image dot size 100 100. And I'm going to do create p. I'm going to just join one string. So I'm going to take this out just to make this a little shorter. Now let's look at this again. I'm going to make a bigger window. We can have this nice moment where I drag the unicorn here. There's our unicorn. I drag the rainbow here. There's the rainbow. I drag another rainbow here. There's that. So you can see here, the files are coming in. I'm adding them to the page. And also I get information. How big was the file? What was the name of the file? I could use that information. I'm just sort of like spitting it right back. So this is interesting, hopefully. I mean, so I'm not really doing anything with that. And also, I should mention, let's just prove that this works. I'm going to refresh this page to start over. Let's drag all of the images all at once. And there you go. All of them appear. So it's handled. That callback was triggered many, many times for each image. So I'm going to do one more thing, which I think is just kind of like makes this seem a bit more magical. So you can have a DOM element that has like a dotted line and says drag your file here, but anything can be a DOM element that you drag stuff onto. Even like a button could or a slider could, even that barely makes any sense. But let's actually do something to this example. I'm going to do save as, drag and drop to. I'm going to say, you know what? Forget about this drop zone thing. Take that out of there. Take that out of there. Why not store the canvas in a variable and say canvas.drag over, canvas.drag leave, canvas.drop. So look at this. If I run this now, I can just take this image and drag it over the canvas. Drop zone is not defined. All right, I don't need any of this styling stuff anymore, to be honest with you. I'm deciding like not to care about that. I can do something much simpler. I can just use the single callback of dropping it. You know, I'm not just skipping the visual feedback part, right? So anything can be a drag and drop element. And now let's think about this even more in a different way. What if when I drag the element onto the canvas, I want to see the image in the canvas? So what can I do? I can just call the image function, image 0, 0 with height. So this is the difference, again, between making a DOM element image and then versus drawing an image into a canvas. The image function draws that image, whether it's through load image or create image, into the canvas. Create image makes the DOM element. So now we should be able to see this, that. Now I'm only seeing the top left corner of the image because they're kind of small. I'm surprised about that because I'm drawing it supposedly with the width and height of the so I'm kind of surprised. I feel like that's a little bit of a P5 bug there. I don't know why that's not working. I have to examine that. But also the thing that I wanted to show you is that even though I might have to do it this way to create the image via to create the image as a way of like getting the data from the file, I can use the p5 function image.hide. So I can make that DOM element purely to open that file, and then I can hide it instantly and then draw it into the canvas. I'm actually sort of surprised this is working because I realized that I was sort of thinking, that there might be another problem associated with this. But now it's working. I don't know what I missed with the width and height before. Maybe that size thing probably messed things up. But you can see, look at this, that was a transparent image. So you can see now, as I drag and drop the images onto the canvas, I see the image there. So that concludes this particular video where what I was hoping to demonstrate, I think I did, which is the idea that you can create any element on the page and you can handle when you're dragging a file over it, when you decide you're not going to drag that file over it, and when you actually drop that file. And if it's an image file, you can use that image to display the image data. And in some other video in the future, I'll probably show you how to do it with a text file and do something like word counting in the text file. But that you might investigate the load strings function and sort of see how you might do that. I don't have a good exercise. I can't think of one. I'll write something in the description. OK, thanks. And I think I have one more sort of DOM video to make after this one. OK, hello live stream, all 5 of you. I don't know if anybody's still watching, but some people, it claims that people are watching. I'm going to just take a short break for myself here for like a minute and drink a little bit of water. If you have any questions or feedback, please add them into the chat. Okay, so the last thing that I want to do is just sort of demonstrate automatic control of interface elements, which I don't know exactly what practical use this has, but I think it's sort of interesting and weird. And so I'm going to do that with a text field and with a slider. And yeah, I almost want to do this with Perl and noise, which would be kind of weird and interesting, but then I'd have to explain Perl and noise, and I have to do that in a different video, I think. Okay, so this is the last one. It's like very hot in here. I'm gonna open the window a little bit more, get some air in here. Let me get myself set up for this. We're gonna make a new example called Zombie Dom, and I'm gonna take out all this stuff, and I'm gonna take out all of this stuff, and I'm gonna run this, and it's empty and blank, which works, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna say function setup, no canvas, function draw. Okay, so okay, sorry. Think I'm ready for this here. I'm trying to think of what I'm going to look at. I think I'm probably just going to use the computer for this one. I don't think I need the whiteboard to demonstrate this idea. Okay. Close this. And this is the last one, except I didn't do this, even though I came across the scenario in the previous video where that would have been useful for, to remind myself. I should have written that down. Somebody remind me. Okay, I'm going to minimize this. I've got this. This opens up over here. Let's do this to this just to like put it over here, which I think will be good enough. Okay, great. So I'm ready. I think this is the last video I'm going to record today. It's about 2:45. I did 2 hours and 20 minutes this morning. I've now done almost an hour, which is 3.5 hours today, which is probably more than I should do in one day. But Thursday is the day that I have to do this. And so here we go. Checking the chat. And I'm going to close this laptop and get started. Hold on, I need some water again. So this is really a bonus video. I just want to do something weird with DOM manipulation that I'm kind of going to just make up on the fly, although I did make an example like this a couple weeks ago. I haven't looked at it since then, so hopefully this is going to work out. And what I want to show you how to do is to take interface elements that normally you would ask the user to manipulate, like move a slider or type some text into a text input box. And I want to show you how to just control those things programmatically as if they're like there's a zombie controlling your computer. So first of all, I have a P5 sketch here. I have the P5 editor. So, this is sort of like a bit of a standalone video, so some of you might be coming to it from not having seen P5 before. Go to p5.js.org, download the editor, look at the reference. You can use that for this quick little project. So let's hit this button. We can see there's absolutely nothing appearing in the browser because I haven't added anything. Now, let's create a variable called slider. And I'm going to say slider equals create slider. And remember, when you create a slider, you need a minimum and a maximum and a starting range. It doesn't really matter so much. So I'm going to create a slider with minimum goes from 0, maximum goes to 100, and it starts at 50. It's very loud outside, so I'm going to close the window. And I'm back. You can see the slider is there. And now I can do what anyone would normally do with a slider. I can slide it back and forth. I could use the slider to control myself. Watch. Nobody cares that I'm doing this, but it amused me for a second. OK, so that's normally what you do. And you would tie the slider to an alpha value or to some parameter in a flocking system, whatever kind of creative coding thing you're doing today. But what if you wanted to actually set the value of that slider? So one thing you can actually do is, okay, so if you want to get the value of the slider, you say slider.value. And so let me make it between 0 and 255. And I can see now I have no canvas. Let me create the canvas just so it's there. And you can see now that the canvas is there, and as I move the slider, it's changing the background color. This is, again, what you might normally do. Now, another way I could change the value of the slider is actually to just call the value function, but give it an argument. So the argument I'm going to give it is the number right now, 151. So you can see that now the slider, even though it started at 50, as soon as draw executed, I set its value to 151. Well, draw is animating, looping over and over again. What if I made that some variable? Like, for example, var x equals 151 and slider.value x, and x equals x plus some random amount between like -5 and 5. Now, let me run that, and you can see, look, the slider is moving on its own. I have my first zombie slider. There it is, just moving around. I don't ever have to operate the computer again. It's just going to do it for me. Great. So, but let's go a little bit further with this. First of all, let's use something called a sine wave. I will link below to some other video where I talk about sine waves. I'm saying I'm going to link below. I better do it. Write in the comments if I didn't do it, and I'll add it. But let's use a sine wave. So let's say instead that x equals the value, var x equals the value of a sine of something, sine of some angle. So now I need a variable called angle, and I need it equal to 0. Now, I might as well take just a brief moment to come over here to this whiteboard, which I said I wasn't going to need, and talk about what you get out of the sine function. I said I was going to link to another video, but I feel obligated to just offer a quick explanation. If you've ever seen a drawing of the sine function, this is not going well, the camera shut off. If you've ever seen a drawing of the sine function, it looks something like this. The range goes from between 1 to -1. I should start over, but I'm not going to. The range goes between 1 and -1, the x-axis being this angle that's moving through time in a way that you can think. So depending on what the value of the angle is, I'm going to get between 1 and -1. So here, that was like the worst explanation ever. Just go to the thing that explains the sine function. You haven't looked at it before. So what I want to do is get the sine of some angle. And if I do that, it's stuck there at the bottom, right? The result of the sine function is always a value between -1 and 1. Now, there happens to be another function in P5 called the map function, and I definitely have a video that's only about the map function. I'll also link to that below. But what I can do with the map function is I can say, hey, the sine function goes between -1 and 1. That's the range of the sine function, but the range of my slider is between 0 and 255 or 0 and 100, whatever it was. Between 0 and 255. So map the result of the sine function, which is somewhere between -1 and 1, to between 0 and 255. So now I'm going to do that. Oh, unexpected number, line 12. I don't see, oh, because I forgot a comma here. There we go. You can see, so sine of 0 happens to be the value 0, which then happens to be halfway between -1 and 1, which is halfway, which gets mapped to 127 about, and you can see it's now in the middle. Now, what if I took that angle and incremented it over time? I could maybe get the slider to oscillate nicely. Angle plus equals 0.01. Now the angle, the unit of measurement is in radians, and in that other set of videos that I'm linking to, there'll be an explanation of that. And you can see, look at that. This nice little, the slider's moving nicely, slowly, and it's coming to the end, and it eases off. And we could maybe make that move a little bit faster by incrementing the angle a bit more each frame. And now I've got this slider that's like oscillating automatically. It's kind of like dancing. I'm trying to do it with it, but I can't. So this was fun and all well and good, but let's do something more with this. First of all, forget about this silly canvas thing. That was nice to be able to see that the slider is still actively controlling the canvas, but forget about that, forget about background. What if instead I make an array of sliders and I were to say for var I equals 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus, and I'm going to make all those sliders in an array. So make all those sliders in an array, and then let's do exactly the same thing down here. Let's set all of their values to the value of this sine function. And here we go. And I run it. Look at that. All of the sliders are now oscillating back and forth. Isn't that lovely? And then, I don't know, 10 didn't seem like very many. Let's make 50 of them. Oh, and I hard-coded that. I should really say sliders.length. Let's make 50 of them. You can see all of them moving. I don't know. I'm just going crazy. Let's make 100 of them. I want to fill the page with sliders. You can see now I've got 100 sliders dancing back and forth. Now, interestingly enough, if I'm working with a sine wave and I have one thing oscillating back and forth, and I have another thing oscillating back and forth, and I have another thing oscillating back and forth, what if each one of those was just a little bit behind the other one, right? So when this one is over here, this one is over here, and then this one's over here, and then this one gets to the end and comes back, and then this one gets to the end, there's just a little bit of offset, so they're kind of like dancing with each other in a way. And we could play some music and dance the night away with the sliders. That's what I do. By the way, I have no social life, so I go home and I dance the night away with sliders. Think about that for a minute, why don't you? Then donate. There's no donate button, but I don't know what you would donate to the cause of sad dancing slider people. But the point is, what if I could get each one slightly offset from the other one? Maybe I could have another variable. I could say offset equals 0, angle plus offset, and then offset plus equals 0.02345, making that number up. Doesn't really matter. The p5. The point is, I want each one of those to oscillate based on that angle, but one of them should be 0.025 ahead, and the other one should be 0.05 ahead, and the other one should be 0.075 ahead. I think I'm doing the math right. Let's just see if that works. There we go, dancing the night away with the slide. So you can see here, I'm just Zamba controlling these sliders. They're all slightly offset from each other. I could play around, like what if I really make them offset from each other? Whoa, now I've got this crazy pattern here where all the sliders, and I could arrange them in a different way. I could have them like make a little picture. I could all use them to control things. I could style them. So there's lots of possibilities. The point that I'm making this video is to say, I don't know anything about the web or design or how to make anything look right or do anything practical. But, so I'm sometimes trying weird things out and things happen. But the point of what I'm saying, that's not the point of what I'm saying. The point of what I'm saying is the browser could be an experimental canvas for you. What kinds of things exist as elements in the browser that we use every day in these standard ways, and what might happen if you subvert those standard ways and do do different things with them that might not be expected. This is a very simplistic, almost sort of like first approach to that, but it's something that's worth looking into and playing around with. I want to keep doing stuff to it, but I'm like stopping myself. The other thing that you might think about doing is having text input box, and how you can use the value function to set what's in the text. How might you make it appear that someone's typing into that text input box without there being a person there and suddenly hitting a submit button? So how might you make a page feel as if it's interacting with itself? You could also do something when you move one slider. Oh, we should try this. Okay, so let's stop this. Okay. You stop the video now and go outside and play frisbee or whatever, and go socialize with your friends or have a nice cup of chamomile tea to relax, meditate. All these things are much more important than what I'm going to do next. But if you're still here, I'm going to do one more thing with this. What if I have them all move when I move one of them, slightly offset from the one I'm moving? I don't even know if that would work. I shouldn't try to do this right now. This is going so well. I'll just add this one. So for example, let's say what I want to do is handle just the first slider, the input event. First, adjust sliders. So if you remember, the input event is an event that gets fired anytime there is a change to the value of a DOM element, such as a slider. So I don't need this draw function anymore. I'm going to rename this to adjust sliders. And I'm going to say start from slider 1. Sliders I value, sliders index 0 dot value. I'm making this simple. So here what I've done now is I've said anytime you change sliders 0, the first element in the array, call this function adjust sliders, loop through all the other ones starting with 1, and change their value to the value of the first one. So here we go, and I can say anytime I move this, they all move. But so I'm going to leave that at that. You could like take this. What if when you move, they all kind of like move sporadically, but kind of like with that one? What if when you move, it causes them to sort of ripple? First one moves, then the next one moves, then the next one moves, and you get this kind of like dancing. This is dancing with sliders. So how could you, if you actually interact with one and it makes the other ones do something? Anyway, I'm kind of off the beaten path here. Think of your own, you're in the comments to wherever you're seeing this video, write some other ideas of things that might be more interesting than what I'm thinking of. I would love to make some more examples in this direction, or maybe share things that you've made in that way. So this concludes many videos that I've made about DOM manipulation, HTML, and CSS with the p5.js library. I'm sure I missed a lot of things. There are a bunch of these videos where things didn't work or I was like kind of confused. Send me your feedback. Write your letters of complaint to Brian Williams. I mean, me here at ITP. The address is 721 Broadway. I think that's okay to mention. It's on the internet. You can send something in the mail. I like things in the mail. I will, the next section of videos that I'm hoping to make, possibly tomorrow, but definitely next week, if not tomorrow, is about working with data. So how do you work with a data file that you might load that has information in it? How do you connect to an API, like a weather API or the New York Times API or this wonderful API called the WordNick API? That's one of my favorite APIs. So that's what I'm going to look at in the next set of videos that I get to next. So thanks for tuning in, which sounds ridiculous. And I don't know, I'm going to stop now. Thanks. Okay. Okay. So that's finishing up the live stream from today. There are a few of you still here. I'll stick around for just like a few minutes. Just if you had a question, type it into the chat. And I'm keeping my eye on it. And otherwise, I'm going to turn off the stream in the next few minutes. An hour in, that's pretty good. 2 hours this morning, an hour now. That's, I think, 3 hours is probably my limit for the day, although I'm kind of like, you know, too many ideas are floating in my head of other things to record. Okay. Okay, I'm looking at the chat. I'm looking at the stream health. It says it's very healthy. Looking at a button that says I can share that I'm doing this. Change the thumbnail. Okay, I don't see anyone asking any questions, so I'm going to sign off for today. I hope you enjoyed this. I really enjoy this, even though I feel a little bit like I'm just like repeating myself or making the same bad jokes all the time. But I'll, you know, come back fresh another day. Thanks. And it's very awkward to say goodbye to people that don't exist. Someday I'm going to do this with actual people in the room. That might be a nice thing to do. Okay, I'm hitting stop. Goodbye.